Hi and welcome back to our channel, where we recap your favorite video games. Today we will be recapping a first-person shooter action game called Far Cry 5, so without further ado, let's begin! The game's opening scene begins with the introduction of Montana, a beautiful open country that was home to the locals but not for long when a religious group led by Joseph Seed took over the place, slowly gaining control over farms and radio stations. The locals and the government were helpless in front of him and his capabilities. A video compilation of Joseph Seed, the father, shows how he had infested the brain of his followers and would mercilessly kill anyone in his way. The scene shifts to the inside of a heli, where the sheriff and U.S. Marshal along with Rook, our protagonist, also called Deputy, head to Joseph Seed's compound, the U.S. Marshal carrying a federal arrest warrant for Joseph in his hand. The deputy is also present. Along with them, the sheriff debates with the U.S. Marshal that Joseph was a dangerous individual while talking over the radio to dispatch Nancy, and there was still time to turn back. Pratt, one of the pilots, refers to Joseph's followers as Peggies, stating they had started peacefully but were fully armed and now wouldn't let go without a fight. The heli lands near Joseph's compound, and the sheriff and the marshal along with Rook make their way to the church through the eerie path and the glower of cultists. Before reaching the church, Sheriff advises the marshal to follow his way and not create a scene, but the marshal gets impatient, presenting the arrest warrant and asking for Joseph to step forward. Joseph, his hair tied in a man bun and wearing glasses, advises his followers to leave the church, stating God will save him, and present his hands to be cuffed. Rook, cuffing his hands and one hand behind his shoulder, transfers him to the heli, the sheriff and marshal in front of him. The cultists attack their helicopter, get on board, and try to free the father but get pushed back. The heli gets some airtime before catching fire and crashing to the ground. The screen goes black. The heli was upside down on fire. Rook, still half conscious, hears Nancy's voice over the headset and tries to grasp it, but Joseph grabs his hand, his face in front, and talks into the mic saying there was no need for backup, and gets out of the heli. Joseph gets on top of a stranded car and addresses his people, telling them nothing will stand in their way and these hell-bringers will see the truth, and shouts for reaping. The deputy, still stuck in the heli, gets grasped by cultists, but the Rook and the marshal manage to escape. Rook escapes into the forest and is stranded for some time before Marshall sends a message over radio to anyone alive. They group at a trailer house but are discovered shortly. They escape on a truck chased closely by the cultists and fight their way through but are overpowered and go crashing into a river. Rook and the marshal now swim ashore. Marshall gets caught by the cultists, but Rook is captured by Dutch, an islander who had been trying to get behind the situation created by Joseph. Dutch informs Rook that his friends were all captured and in possession of different family members, and to free them he would have to liberate his island and slowly move forward and gather people that would fight for him. Rook manages to liberate Dutch's island by performing different tasks before coming to know that Hudson, the deputy, was in possession of John Seed. Rook heads for Fall End and liberates it, where he meets Mary and the pastor, who are willing to help him. Rook does some tasks for Mary and the pastor, including getting Widowmaker a truck of sentimental value back to Mary and liberating Woodson Pig Farm as directed by the pastor. He heads for Silver Lake Park but is attacked in the way and fights back but gets caught by John Seed and the cultists. Deputy wakes up to find himself pushed under the water, struggling before he's pulled up. Joseph and John get him cleansed, implying there was still hope for his atonement, and Deputy gets transferred to a discreet location in the back of a van, but halfway through they get rammed. The pastor had come to his rescue and together they fight off the cultists bravely. Deputy, now back on track, helps Jerome the pastor rescue more of their people and gets Nick's stolen plane back for him, but the Peggies hit back and they defend Nick's place. Deputy meets Grace and helps her defend the history of their local heroes, but gets caught yet again by the Peggies and is taken to John Seed. The deputy wakes up tied to a chair in a dark room, and in his front is Hudson, crying her eyes out and gagged, tied to a chair as well. John again asks for the atonement of their sins. Deputy agrees with John, and Hudson, still tied, gets taken away. Deputy, seeing the chance, frees himself and slowly makes his way through the bunker looking for Hudson, but John comes in his way, and before he could save her, a poisonous gas is released all over the bunker and Depp is forced to escape from the bunker, or rather die. Deputy meets Merle and is given the task of getting Death Wish a truck with a machine rifle atop, back from the cultists, and successfully manages to get it back. Deputy is called to a church to meet John, and as he enters gets hit by the back of a gun and passes out. On waking up, John engraves a tattoo on his skin, and he's pushed forward where the cultists all have guns pointed at Jerome, Mary, and Nick all helpless. John asks for Nick's atonement and hurts Nick and then asks the same for the deputy, to confess by placing hands upon the words of Joseph and renouncing his sins. Deputy finds a pistol and shoots at John but misses, and in a rush, John gets taken out of the church. Deputy, with the help of his friends, chases after John, who manages to get airborne in a plane. Nick and Deputy both chase after him and manage to gun him down. Deputy shoots John down, takes the bunker key, and goes to rescue Hudson and all others trapped there by the Peggies. Deputy Hudson is rescued by Rook, and together they save the people trapped there and blow the Eden Project bunkers sky high. With the death of John, Holland Valley gets liberated, and they all gather at Fall's End to celebrate in Mary's Club. Holland Valley was free, but Faith and Jacob were still standing, and they were Deputy's next targets. Rook heads for the Hope County Jail, where he finds Sheriff asking for help being attacked by Peggies and helps them defend their standpoint. Rook and Sheriff get reunited and together start working to help strengthen the Cougars. Deputy visits Victor and later gets overcome by hallucination, where Faith reaches him, floating like an angel, and tells him a story about her past, and he's asked to walk the path of atonement. Rook wakes up with bodies around him, blood splattered on the floor, and the voice of Faith still ringing in his head. He meets Dr. Charles and helps him in his plan to lure out angels, the followers of Faith. Rook is brought yet again to the bliss of a path magical and mistful, and led by Faith to Father, where he shown that the aftermath that was coming, and only Father was their true savior. He wakes up back at the prison, struggling, subconscious, the sheriff near him, and is administered adrenaline before coming back to his senses. Deputy gets back to work in Henbane River, cleaning up the water supply poisoned by Bliss and helping get Miss Mabel's lost cat back. Rook destroys Joseph's statue and Faith's copy of Father's words along with it, and ends the supply of Bliss once and for all. The Marshal was trapped in the Bliss by Faith, and Rook goes after him into the Bliss. Marshal, who had been deluded, walked the path of Faith, but Rook manages to stop him and gets him out slowly. Marshal gets to lay back and rest, and Faith, now enraged by this, goes on the lookout for Rook. Faith bites back, killing Virgil and Marshal with his own hands using the Bliss, and while Rook was subconscious, directs Peggies to attack the prison. Rook manages to free Tracy while Sheriff was captured, and he goes after Faith to confront her and put an end to this once and for all. Faith traps the Sheriff with Bliss in a bunker and leaves his fate for Rook to stop her and save him. Rook kills Faith and goes after the Sheriff, where he stops the production of Bliss and manages to get the Sheriff and the survivors out of that hellhole. With the end of Faith, Henbane's River was liberated, and Jacob was Rook's next target, leading him finally to the Father. Deputy gets to work in Jacob's region, the Whitetail Mountains, liberating outposts, and meets with a new character, Jess, who informs about Jacob's perishing of innocent people and helps him free hostages from his grip. Together they put an end to a precious member of Jacob's crew, the cook. The deputy gets captured by Jacob and barely makes it out alive with the help of Eli, and becomes a part of Wolf's Den, the rebellion, to help take down Jacob. The deputy is assigned a task to save the crew from the visitors center that had been taken hostage, and secures Hawkeye Tunnel from the cultists with the help of Jess. He helps Herc get the truck back from the watchtower captured by the cultists and rides back to Fort Durbin, killing cultists coming in their way. After completing another task for Herc Sr., Rook makes his way back to the den, where Eli asks for another favor, and he makes his way to the Great Continental Hotel, where Briggs was being held hostage by the cultists. He gets ambushed while trying to save Briggs and holds the post on his own, defeating the cultists. Tammy acknowledges Rook and asks for a favor, saying it takes long enough for her to build up trust, but she would like to give him a chance. Rook goes on his way, but fate was against him, and he gets ambushed and captured while heading to the South Aerial Tower. Rook is in a cell when Father visits him and tells him a story about how he was guided by the Lord on this path, and that whatever is given can also be taken. Jacob plays his little mind game on Rook again, but he survives and wakes up in a river full of blood and bodies around him. Rook climbs the 2 towers and destroys the jammers, but finds about a mobile jammer on the road and goes on the lookout. This helps restore radio communication. Rook now goes on a supplies hunt, looking for underground bunkers across the terrain with the help of a map. First scouting the Cooper cabin and then the Redtail cabin. Rook, on his way to Kestrel cabin, gets a call for help stating Peggies had stolen the Cooper's last stash and chases an ATV, getting away with the stash. Having collected all the stash, he delivers it to Weedy at the den. Rook gets played by the mind games of Jacob again, but still manages to free himself with some help and gets back to helping the Liberation and Eli free themselves from this psychotic suffering. Rook heads to Stone Ridge Chalet where Jacob tortured live innocent people as targets for the Chosen One. After killing the Chosen Ones, he rigs the place with explosives and blows the whole place, putting an end to that torture center. Rook gets manipulated by Jacob into his mind games and ends up killing Eli by accident. Tammy, infuriated, asks Rook to put an end to Jacob or he'll be killed. Rook gets out of the bunkers and the sky turns red with burning trees and beacons on the tower. The mind games of Jacob had started yet again, but Rook doesn't give up and gets out of his delusions and goes after him, managing to pin him down. Jacob, all bloody, rests on the rocks before life slowly gets out of him and his body lays there. Rook yanks the bunker key from his chain and heads to save his friend Pratt and the other prisoners. Guns blazing and alarms buzzing, Rook and Pratt escape Jacob's armory, putting an end to it and destroying it once and for all. The rebellion, now stronger than ever, vows to put an end to Eden's Gate, and Eli's body is burnt. A scene is shown of the father crying in distress and agony, mourning the loss of his family, and welcomes Rook and his friends for the last time to the church where it all began, taking his friends hostages and leaving their fate in his hand. Rook approaches the church and the father walks out. The sheriff, Hudson, and Pratt are all brought to him and forced to the ground with guns to their heads. The deputy is given the choice of either leaving the father and his flock of followers and walk away, or he can resist and fight back. Rook chooses to resist. The father unleashes his wrath. A huge earthquake shakes the ground, and Rook is thrown off balance. Rook fights back for his friends and saves them all while Joseph attacks them, the whole compound surrounded by a storm. The father gets overpowered while Rook's companions slowly get out of his spell and help him, and he's defeated. Joseph slowly crawls up from the ground defeated and gives his final message as the sheriff cuffs him. Suddenly there is a white flash on the screen. They all turn behind to see a big cloud in the distance. The world was coming to an end just as Joseph has promised. All the seals were broken and their fates had been decided. They get Joseph in the car and Rook gets in contact with Dutch heading to his bunker. A big cloud of debris was all around them. Rook, driving the car towards Dutch's bunker, dodges the falling trees and the flames but goes crashing into a tree. In the last shot, he gets dragged into the bunker. Subconscious, he wakes up to find a dead Dutch lying on the floor. The father turns around and sits near him, atoning he was right and the world he once knew was over and they would step out again cleansed of their sins, and Rook was his family now. He leans back and smiles. The screen slowly fades to black and the game ends here. Thanks for watching, and if you liked it then please consider liking and subscribing to our channel. We will see you in the next one.